Hello and welcome back to Mama Juice. I am your host Sandra, and this is where the bad moms come for the juice. Today I am interviewing Breanna, who is a mother of six. You heard that right, 6 kids. So let's get to it.
Hold up.
Hey Bree,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Sweaty because I just ran home from work.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and I felt bad because I was late, but I'm late everywhere I go, so
Oh,
it is
me
what it is.
too. Yeah,
Oh,
it
good,
is what it is.
good. So I don't feel so bad.
Hashtag mom life, right?
Today, I want to talk to you about your mom journey, which is a very exciting, long one.
It is a long one.
Yeah. So, take me back to getting married, trying to make babies.
I'm trying to make babies, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I got married in 2009 at 21, and I think that I thought there was always going to be a little bit of a struggle in that department just because of other issues I had had before getting married.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And yeah, and I had a sister. My oldest sister struggles with fertility, and what I had experienced was pretty close to what she had experienced. And so I think I just assumed that I would have to go through something similar to what she did. Um, and so I had been on birth control for like a year before I got married and decided that the month before I got married, I wasn't going to take it anymore because I was like, if there's going to be a problem, I want to know about it now. Everything seemed normal. And I was like, okay, maybe we're not going to have a problem. I don't know that I wanted children like right away, but things started getting weird with me again quickly after that. And so I went to my doctor and I said, hey, this is this and that's that. And he said, yeah, okay, tell me about your stress that's changed. And I was like, well, I got married in December, moved out of my parents' house. And then he was like, yeah, you're stressed. Just calm down and everything will be
Yeah.
okay. And I was like, okay. That was fine for like 6 months. And then I was like, okay, but now things aren't getting normal. And
Right.
so I went back and he was like, well, what are you stressing out about? And I was like, the fact that I'm not feeling like everything's okay. Like I'm not having a
Yeah.
normal cycle. I'm not having this. I'm not having that. And he was like, okay, well, let's try this. And so we started like low dose hormone therapy and hoping that things would just happen. And nothing was happening. And so then there's only so much that a normal gynecologist can do. And so
Right.
then he sent me to a specialist. And that was after like a year and a half. He sent me to a specialist and I went in and I told him and he did a bunch of blood work and did a bunch of like ultrasounds and x-rays and things and everything. Every doctor was like, I just don't understand, like everything looks normal. I don't understand why you're not getting pregnant. I don't understand why this isn't happening for you. And I was like, I don't either. And so we tried like
Right.
diet changes and a possible thyroid disorder and a possible like all this stuff, and none of it was making any difference. It was just making me tired and costing me a lot of money. And I
I'm
was
more
like, oh
stressed
my
out.
gosh. Yeah, causing more stress in my life. And so in 2012, we went to an actual like fertility specialist in Scottsdale. He did what's called HSG. That's what it's called. And it was just like a dye test. And they just like put it up and make sure there's not like any blockage of any sort. And there was. And he was like,
Oh,
well, there you go. There's a problem. Let's go in and fix that. And then everything should be fine. And I was like, oh my gosh, like answers, right?
yeah.
And so I had surgery in August of 2012. And that didn't do anything. I mean, it fixed the blockage. It wasn't there anymore, but nothing like corrected itself after that. And then it was just like more money and more stress and more emotional and mental like pain. And it puts a strain on like your relationship. And my sister got pregnant right after that. And it was just like, God hates me.
Oh. Yeah, I can imagine.
And yeah, and so then after that, we went back, we took a break for a while and just said, let's just see if things just calm down, if that's not like on the forefront of our brains. And it wasn't, nothing changed. And so then we went back to the same specialist, and he did an ultrasound and did blood work and said, you look great. Now let's check your husband. And I was like, okay. And they did the test for him, and it came back that there was a problem there too. And so it became an option where we had the choice where we could look for a donor on for his end. We could look for a surrogate for the potential that I wouldn't be able to possibly carry a baby, or we could look into adoption. And at 25, that's kind of like a hard thing to face.
Heck
and
yes.
So we're like, okay, well, let's talk about it. And of course, that's more money that would cost no matter what angle we went. And so we went home, and you know us, we're pretty religious people. And so we prayed about it, and we talked to our families. And see, I told you you're gonna like make me emotional. That's not cool.
Okay.
But at the same time, my sister-in-law had been asked about whether or not she was interested in potentially fostering. And I don't know about you, but there's horror stories of that like whole world. 100%. And I think I was afraid of it in like just in general. And so it was never anything I had even like considered because it was scary. But looking into like adoption and the cost of private adoptions and the length of time you have to wait before someone chooses you, and I don't know, I struggle with like self-worth and confidence, and so I'm like, no one's ever gonna pick me.
Seriously, like, okay, so you just go through this journey of infertility, and now you have to go in the chopping block against all these other parents who want a baby so that somebody
who
can
want to
decide
adopt this baby
who's worthy. Like, that sounds horrible from the adopter's standpoint.
Right? And so I was like, I don't even want to do that. And we don't have any money because we just dumped it into fertility. So my sister-in-law got questioned about if she'd be interested in fostering these 3 little boys, and she didn't know what that meant, and I didn't know what that meant. And so we watched her kind of go through the possible placement of that and being their like temporary mom. Yeah. And you see their faces, and they're just kids, and they just want someone to love them, and they just want to be safe, and they just want to know when they're going to be fed and where they're going to sleep, and that's all. And so it was seeing those 3 little boys that I was like, Jimmy, we could do this. And he was like, no, we can't. I was like, but we could. Like, we really could. And so we looked into it, and in April of 2014, we decided to become foster parents with no real idea of what that actually meant for our future. But we were doing it, and I'm a doer. Like, I said we were going to do it, and so we did it. And we got our house ready. We lived in a 3-bedroom house, and so it was like we knew that we didn't have to move to make this possible. We didn't have to like do a bunch of changes. We just had to get our house ready. And so we did. We did our classes from the end of May until August, and we got our licensing done. We had our home inspected. We had beds put up. We had a crib. We had everything. And we were licensed from 0 to 12 years old. And our licensing worker was like, well, what age limit do you want to put on it? Like, do you have a limit? And I was like, I'm 26. So realistically, in my head, I don't want anyone over the age of 7, because then it's like, I'm not even old enough to be their parent kind of thing. Yeah. And she was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. And so she licensed us to 12, because she said, we'll do that because if they're with you, if you take them in at 7, but they're not adopted by the time they're 10 or 11, then they would have to either change our license or send this child to another home. We did that, and on August 25th, 2014, we went on the list, on the open beds list, where we just placed our specifications of what we were willing to take in, and the child would come into care, and then they send out a call through all of the agencies in Arizona, and then each agency sends in a name. I was at work and I missed the phone call, and I was freaking out. I know. And so, and my job knew, like my supervisor knew like the situation, and I told her, like, I know I'm not supposed to have my phone, but this is what's going on. And she was like, no problem, just finish what you're doing and take the call outside. And so I saw that I missed the call, and I hurried and ended the phone call I was on and ran out, and I called them back, and they said, oh, we were calling you about a 2-year-old and a 9-month-old, but they've already been placed. And I was like, no.
Dang, that fast?
That fast. And it wasn't even an hour. It was like 10 minutes later I called them back. And I was like, okay. And she was like, but I mean, so it was a sibling group. And I was like, okay. And she said, they have 2 sisters that are 6 and 8. And I was like, okay. And she was like, we think she's 8. Based on her birthday, she's 8, but they're telling us she's 9, but we think she's only 8. And I was like, okay, well, what do you know about them? And they kind of told me what they knew about them. And I was like, yeah, go ahead. You can submit our name. But we had been kind of told that just because you say yes doesn't mean the Department of Child Safety picks you. And so I was like, yeah, you can go ahead and say yes. I'm sure they've already been placed. Sadly, walk back to my desk, like, all right, I'll take the next call. And then I got another call from a blocked number, and I kind of panicked. And it was the Department of Child Safety telling me that they had placed these 2 girls with me. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? Like going
like,
from
they're
0,
not here, so what does that mean?
what do you mean you've placed them with me? And she was like, well, they're at school right now, so we don't have them yet, but we can call you this afternoon with arrangements to drop them off or for you to come pick them up. And I was like, do you know their names? And she was like, no, I don't have their names in front of me, but we can call you like later and let you know more information. And I hang up and I call my husband, and I said, bad news, we didn't get placed with a baby like we thought, but we got placed with 2 girls, 6 and 8. And he started crying. And he was like, we can't do that. Like, we're not ready for that. This is not what we thought. And I was like, Jimmy, calm down. It's our first placements. They won't be here very long. They're in a sibling group. Like, they'll find a place for all 4 kids to go. And he was like, okay, if you really think we can do this, and I was like, we'll be fine. It'll be great. And then I waited and I waited and I waited all day for them to call me again, and they never did. And it was like 4:30, and I called my agency, and I was just like, hey, I haven't heard from them again. I don't know when they're coming. It's almost the end of the day. Like, what do you want me to do? And she was like, well, just kind of wait out. If you haven't heard from them, let me know in the morning, and I'll keep you on the list. And we went about our day, a barbecue at our house, and we were swimming, and it was like 8:00, and my phone rang again. It was a woman telling me that she had my 2 foster daughters and she was on her way from Peoria. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Right.
And she was like, so sorry, it's only me that's been transporting them. We had to take their little sister to her foster home and their little brother to his foster home, and now we're finally getting to you. And I could hear the girls in the background, in like the back of the car, and it was just like, in that moment became real to me that they were coming. And they sounded like Minnie Mouse in the back seat, just like these little happy little girls in the back. And I just remember saying, like, can you tell me their names? Like, what are their names? And so she told me what their names were. And I didn't know at the time, like, what race they were, anything about them. I knew nothing. I didn't know their last name. I didn't anything. And I didn't care. Like, it didn't matter. And just like the surrealness of these kids coming to my home, and that now I was responsible for them. And it took about 45 minutes for them to get here. The little first one comes up and she looks at me, and Jimmy says, "Can I help you with your stuff?" And she said, "No." And he was like, "Okay." And she looked at me and she said, "I only brought enough stuff for 2 weeks because I'm only staying here for 2 weeks." And I was like, "Okay." And we like brought her inside, and her little sister, we brought her in, and she was like, "What is this? Where is this? Where's my bed? What's this? Where's this?" And just wanted a whole tour of the whole house. And so Jimmy gave him a tour, and I talked to the case aide who dropped him off, and she handed me a piece of paper, had me sign it, and said, "Bye."
Oh my goodness.
What? Like,
You're like, wait,
that's
wait,
it?
wait, wait.
You're just leaving them with me?
Yeah, you just left me 2 humans and that's it?
And she was like, "Yeah, if you need anything, case manager's number's on the paper. She'll be in the office tomorrow at 8." And I was like, "Okay, bye." And I came in and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do?" And they had trained us like the best day of your life as a foster parent is the day you receive your first child. But we have to remember that that's the worst day of their life. Like, you're so excited to see them, but they're scared of you. Like, they don't know you and they don't trust you, and they don't. And so we were just like calm and talk to them. Like, "Did you eat dinner? Do you need to take a bath? Like, what do you guys want to do?" And they took a bath, and we made them spaghetti at 9 o'clock at night. And we laid them in their room and turned on Cinderella, and they watched Cinderella. And I was like, I don't even care what time they go to bed, because I just want them to feel safe and just that it's okay. Whatever tonight's weird, and it's just whatever it's going to be. And we got them in school, and we tried to make life feel normal. I went back to work, and we had people that from our church that like helped get them home from school until I could get my schedule adjusted so that I was home. And then the first time their case manager came over, she said, "I don't want you to get them like in anything extracurricular, like no sports, no activities, because we're still trying to find a place that they can all go, like all 4 of them together." And I said, "Well, what does that, like, what are the requirements? Could they come here? I know that we're a new foster family and we only have a license for 2, but I also know that they make exceptions for siblings." And their case manager just like stared at me.
Right. She's like,
"What do you mean?
This doesn't
And I was like,
happen.
"Well, yeah." I'm like, "Well, I have a house. Like, it's not like I'm in an apartment. I have the space. I have their 2 big sisters who are having like daily anxiety attacks because they don't know, like, where's my sister? Where's my brother?
Yeah.
Where's my baby brother? Like, I don't believe you that he's okay because I can't see him."
Right.
And she was just like, "Breanna, no one says that. Like, no one offers that." And I was like, "Am I not supposed to? Like, is it not allowed?" And she was like, "No, it's allowed. People just don't do it." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm doing it. So what do I have to do?" And so she told us what we had to do, and we did it. Like, I was like, we just have to make it happen. Is it insane? Yes. Is it crazy to go from 0 kids to 4 kids? Yes. But I knew that it would make it easier, not for me, but for the girls that I had here. And so in October, they moved their brother and sister over here, and life got crazy, but life got easier as far as like emotional and mental stability for the 2 older girls. And we started dance, and we started all sorts of fun things, and got their younger brother is Brody now. He had some medical issues that they weren't really sure how extreme they were. They just knew that there were some concerns with his eyes and his muscle tone and just different things like that. And so immediately we had to get him into a neurologist and an eye specialist and a spasticity doctor and an orthopedist. And I didn't even know what half of these were like before that. Right. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And at 15 months old, so he was 9 months old when we got him, And at 15 months old, he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And it was kind of shocking to me how many people said to me, you know, you can change your mind. Like, you don't have to do this. And it hit me one time when one person said it to me, and I looked at them and I said, if your youngest was born with cerebral palsy, would you give him back? And she was like, well, no, but he's my baby. Like, I carried him. And I was like, he's my baby. Like, I don't care. Like, he needs me, and I'm not going to be the one to just, oh, he's not good enough. Like, that was never an answer to me.
This
It was
one's
never an
broken.
option.
Let's send it back.
Yeah. And he's not broken. Like, I don't look at him and think he's broken at all. And so we went through all of that, like diagnostic procedures and everything, got him started in therapies, and he like had no emotion on his face, like ever. He just was like blank all the time. And it was amazing to me how much just showing him attention and just like holding him and playing with him just changed the whole situation. And he just lit up and just became this character of so much more emotion than just what is going on around me.
Yeah, you can even see it in his pictures. Like, you know, when I would see you post pictures, you could see that change happening.
Yeah. He was 6 months later, he was a totally different baby. In January of 2016, he was adopted along with Hayden, the 2-year-old. She was 3 by the time we adopted her. But we were still waiting for the 2 older girls. They had a different dad. All 4 of them have the same mother, but 2 different fathers. And their dad was still mildly involved in everything. And he lived in California. And so it was distantly involved, but phone calls and stuff like that. And so we were waiting for his trial. And in March of 2016, we had that trial, and he came to court, and we were able to see him. I don't know that we officially met him, but we saw him and he saw us, and he had a visit with the girls, and his rights were terminated shortly after that. And it was
choice or by the court.
A little bit of both. It was a little more mutual than I kind of expected it to be. They asked him if he thought he could get his life in order in a timely manner, and he said no. And they asked him if he thought it was fair for his girls to sit in limbo while he figured it out, and he said no. And his only like stipulation, if you can call it that, to just signing away his rights and not fighting it any further was that we would remain in contact with him. And I was fine with that because the girls knew him. They remembered him. Like, they have solid memories of him. And so I was fine with that. I was not open to like, call me whenever you want kind of thing, but give me your number, give me an email. Here's an email address, and I will send you pictures. I will update you when things happen. And you can reach out to me on social media and see like what's going on, but not open like communication with them. And he was fine with that. And so they severed his parental rights in March, and then they were adopted in June of 2016.
Now, when you first started talking about your story with them, you said, oh, like, you know, we don't even know if they're going to stay. And then one of them was like, I'm only here for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So at what point did you and Jimmy decide like, no, they're here to stay? Is it when you brought the other 2 siblings?
I think that it happened. People have asked me that a lot lately because of our current foster placement. Mm-hmm. But I think it was different for both of us. I think that I knew quicker with Brody and Hayden that they were mine. Like, I felt it a little bit faster. And I think that that's natural, a little more natural because they were younger and they depended on me a little bit more. With the girls, it was longer. So there was a point in the whole time that we thought they were leaving. We thought they were going to California to live with their dad. And they had filed what's called an ICPC, which is just an interstate change of custody. And when they filed that with California, we really thought they were leaving. Like, they're going to live with their dad and we can make it work. We'll stay in contact. We have Brody and Hayden. Like, it'll be fine. And when it came real that I knew they had filed it and that it was in California's hands, I got a little possessive. Like, you're going to take my kids away? Like, what? And I think it was at that time. And so it was almost 18 months in, probably, that I was like, no, these are my kids. Like, I am responsible for them. I protect them. I've put in all this work, and now you're just going to take them from me? And it was like, that's not happening. And I'm going to do whatever I have to do to prevent that from happening, because now I know them better than you do, and I know what's best for them. And I think Jimmy would agree with me in saying it was right about then that we felt like, but these are our kids and that's not fair, kind of thing. Well, it's been 6 years and it's still like, there's still a distance between, like, the trust factor is still there. And it's like, they know that we're not their biological parents, and we know that we're not their biological parents. And so it's like, it's different raising a child that's not biologically yours. But I think that I knew at like 18 months, they're not going anywhere. And we still have, she's 14 now, and we every once in a while will still say, like, it's been a really long 2 weeks, hasn't it? Like, it's forever is gonna. So it's just kind of turned into a little joke between us. But that was her attitude when she got here, and so that was kind of our attitude towards her. Like, okay, you're right, you're just here temporarily. It's not. We're not going to force you to stay here. We're not going to force you to like us. You're just, we're gonna take care of you, and that's all we can do. But I think with Brody and Hayden, it was like 6 to 8 months that I was like, no, these are my kids. And I think it was just through all of Brody's medical stuff.
Yeah.
And then Hayden was just like right there with him. And so it was just like, no, these are my kids. I'm with them 24/7. They need me. I need them. And I knew when I was told by everybody, like, you could change your mind. And I hadn't ever thought that. That's when I knew, like, these are my kids.
Yeah. Okay, like, even if somebody thought that, how could they say that to you? I'm serious. Like, I'm like, that is so sad to say out loud.
I know. The thought never came to my mind, ever.
Yeah.
And none of it felt, like, forced. I didn't ever feel like anyone pushed me into it. I wasn't given the option, because then they ask you all the time, like, are you willing to adopt? Are you guys open to adoption? Are you licensed to adopt? Like, all of that. And so, yeah, I could have said no at any point, but the thought of no never came to my mind.
Yeah.
So I think it was easier with him, but he was a baby too. So
yeah, I would imagine that's the difference, is he doesn't know a life before you guys.
Yeah, he has no memories before us. So that, and in a way that, like, makes it easier, in a way that makes it harder. Like, the explanation of where he came from is not always as easy. So but that's okay, and we know that that's like the reality of our lives. So
2 younger ones in that set, because we'll get to the next set of kids, but do they know that they're adopted?
Yes, they do. We said to ourselves from the beginning that we would never not tell them. Like, our kids would always know that they were adopted. And so Hayden's now 8.5. She talks about, like, I have 3 moms. We call it a tummy mommy. So we have a tummy mommy, and then she has a foster mom before us, because she was placed somewhere else for 2 months. And then she has her forever mommy. But does she remember them? No. I'll ask her every once in a while, like, do you know who? And I'll say her biological mom's name. And she has to think for a minute, like, no. And then she's like, wait, isn't that? And then she'll remember. But she doesn't really have memories of her. Just if she sees a picture, she's like, oh yeah, that I remember that. Or someone will tell a story and she'll, oh yeah, I remember that. But I think it's just the repetition of the stories that she remembers and not the actual event that they're talking about.
So I guess like what I've always wondered is like at what point does she think to even ask questions that would lead to an explanation of you are adopted? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I don't know. I think it's more organic with my set of kids because her sisters are older than her, and so it gets brought up more because if there's like an assignment at school where they have to put their family tree or like bring in a picture when you were a baby, I don't have one. Like I can't do that assignment. And so it gets brought up. And or like, what family tree do I do? Do I do your family or do I do my biological family? And as like the first time we faced that, they were still in the foster system. And so it was, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to do your biological family or do you want to do our family? And we would give them the choice. And I think the first time we did their biological family and we just filled in what we could. I mean, I knew names, but I didn't know a lot of information and I obviously didn't have a lot of pictures. But then the times after that, it's been, well, I want to do your family because right now I'm in your family. And so it's like, okay, let's do that then. And it's been really nice because we've been able to be in contact with some of the biological family. We have an aunt that we communicate with on the two older girls' dad's side. And so she's actually been able to give me a ton of pictures that she has, or through like their social media that she has access to that I don't. And so she's been able to send me a lot of like baby pictures. And here's the first picture of Brody that she sent to everybody to like announce that he was here. But with the little kids, it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't get brought up a lot. And I know that that's something that I'm going to have to face like with them eventually is like, I mean, I know we're going to get to Annie and Bentley, but our youngest was in the NICU for 40 days on drug withdrawal. That's something he's going to have to like deal with as an adult, like when it comes to pain medication or when it becomes to like, if he ever has to take anything for attention, like he can't because he was treated for withdrawal of that. So that's not a conversation I'm looking forward to. Like, yeah, you were like addicted to drugs when you were born and this is what we're doing now. And that's, I mean, no one wants to hear that they weren't wanted ever. And we wanted him and we love him and it's fine, but that's going to be something he'll face. And I'm not looking forward to that, but that's okay. It's what I'm going to do.
So, okay, tell us about Annie and Bentley.
October of 2015. So right before Brody and Hayden's adoption, I said, okay, so we're adopting these kids, but I still didn't get a baby. Like, I want a baby. Like, I don't want a bunch of children. I want babies. And so we changed our license and we went on the list for a 5th placement and we're on the list for newborns only. And we got a placement in like, what is the holiday that's in October?
Halloween.
Columbus Day. No, Columbus Day weekend.
I'm like, just happened.
We got, yeah, you're like, hello. No, earlier. A call for him and he was with us for 3 days and it was pretty much his mom wasn't following the safety plan. We need a place for him to go until we can put the measures back in place to ensure his safety in her home. So we had him for 3 days and then he left. And then 2 weeks after that, we got placed with a little boy and he was with us for about 7 weeks. And it was so fun. Like we fell in love with him and he was 2 days old and he was so tiny and it was so fun to just see like my kids just pull him in and just everybody accepted him and loved him and just wanted to love on him. And the case manager kept telling us, like, you're going to adopt him. He's going to adoption. Mom abandoned him at the hospital. We don't know who dad is. Like, it's just his adoption. And I was like, how exciting. And then I went to court, and there was a lady there who said she was his aunt. And as soon as they confirmed paternity, she was taking him. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? They told me that if I had brought Wayne with me to court that day, which I didn't. I never took the kids to court with me. I think I feared parental reaction with me, like, showing up with them. And so I never did. And they said, if you would have had him with you, we would have just taken him right then. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't. Like, I'm glad I get to go home and have 2 days to just, like, say goodbye to him.
Yeah, that's horrible. Like,
yeah, right? And so I was able to go home, and I wrote a letter to the aunt just expressing how much love we had for him and how we enjoyed having him in our home, and sent some clothes. And it was right before Christmas. And so we had already bought him a couple of things for Christmas. And so I sent those with her, and she emailed me back about 3 weeks later and just expressed her gratitude and sent me a couple pictures of him at Christmas time. And I told her that I would love to stay updated if she was willing. And we stayed in communication for probably a year and a half. She sent me pictures of him after his first birthday and let me know that he was adopted by one of his cousins, who had found out that they couldn't have children. And so it was just like timing with all of it. And they were able to take him in and adopt him. And
so
I
the
was just
aunt
like,
never had the intention of adopting him.
No, I don't know if she did. I think she was taking him kind of hoping that her brother would get his act together and he would be able to take him back. And that didn't happen. And so then her niece adopted Wayne. So that made me feel good that at least someone, like, he was with someone who was going to love him and be as grateful for him as I would have been. 2 weeks after he left, we were on the list for baby boys because now we have 3 girls and Brody. And I was like, boys, we need more boys. There's too many girls. I want more boys. And so we were on the list for boys. And December 30th, we get a phone call at like 8:00 at night. And they said, hey, we see that you're on the list for newborns. And we have this little girl coming right now. She just got discharged from the hospital. She's 4 days old. This is what we know about her. This is the situation. Would you be willing to take her? And it was after hours. And so it was directly from DCS, which that doesn't require a second phone call like our placements had before. It was just, can you take her? And I was like, and I said, Jimmy, it's for a girl. And he was like, no. And I was like, but Jimmy, like, how do I say no? And he was like,
so babe,
no. And I was like, Jimmy, like, if I say no, what's going to happen to her? Like, she's going to get stuck at the placement center. And so he was like, fine, whatever. And I was like, it's a late night call. Like, they'll find somewhere else for her to go. It's fine. Like that. I feel like that's just how I get him to do whatever I want. Right. I'm like, it's fine.
It's temporary. 6 kids
It'll
later.
change. Yeah. And so he was like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. And so I was like, yeah, we'll take her. And so they bring her to our house at like 9:30 at night. They drop her off. And Wayne was so tiny. Like, he was the smallest baby I had seen in my entire life. And they bring in Annie, and she's like cheeks for days. She was like 9 pounds. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's big. And the lady was like, she is? And I was like, I mean, she's little, but look at those cheeks. Like, she's big. And she was like, oh, I was like, my last baby was 6 pounds. And she was like, oh. And so I just obviously like walked her in with her car seat, had to sign the paper, said, here's the bag from the hospital. That was all she had. And they left. And I was like, okay, here we go again. Like, and so we had this little baby, and we had already planned a trip to Disneyland to celebrate our first adoption. And so 10 days later, we went to Disneyland. It was funny to see people's reactions. Like, oh my gosh, a newborn baby at Disneyland. And I even had one lady be like, you just never know with these things, huh? You plan these trips like years in advance, and then, oh, here's a baby. And I was like, yep, you never know. Like, people they just assume, like, they don't know, and that's fine. Like, I don't feel the need to explain to people all the time. It rained like the whole time we were there. I am with my brand new children and this brand new baby, and it's raining in California. But we had a great time, and she was a great baby. Her mom wasn't involved. We saw her mom at court the very first time, like 2 weeks after we got Annie, and she was there, but just mentally not there all the way. And they had to ask her questions over and over, reword them in order for her to understand like what was happening. She was like my age, and so it was hard for me. Like, come on, lady.
Right. Like, how do you not
they're
get
asking
this?
a simple question. Yeah. And so it was sad to me. It was always sad to me to see like the biological parent, the trial that they were facing, the struggle they were having to just exist sometimes. She went to court that first time, but never had any visits with Annie. And then about 6 months in, she moved to Oregon, where she was from. And I had been in contact with her mother. So Annie's mom was in foster care as a child and aged out and never was adopted by her foster mom. But her foster mom had contacted me and said, I'm not looking to take Annie. I don't want to take her from you. I just want to know that she's okay. Like, I have that grandmotherly kind of psychological bond. Like, I knew about her, you know. And so I sent her pictures for a few months, stayed in contact with her for like 18 months, and sent her pictures for her birthday and let her know how she was doing. And she was super sweet about it. And then the contact just kind of faded with her. She told me that Annie actually has 2 brothers that were adopted out previously. And so they're a little bit older than my 2 older girls. And so I think now they're like 16 and 14.
Oh, wow.
She wouldn't tell me anything past that, but said, save my information, and when Annie's old enough, she can call me. I think with her, when I knew her mom moved to Oregon, I knew we were adopting her. Like, mom's out, mom's gone. She's not going to submit any other names for anyone to take her. She's ours. And so we adopted her in March of 2017. And right after that, like 2 days after her adoption, we got Bentley. And
oh, wow.
We were on the list for him for like 6 weeks. He was born in February of 2017. It's like weird looking back on the timeline of it all. I went on the list for him the day he was born, but didn't get him until he was being discharged from the hospital. I got like maybe 10 other calls for other babies. And I always said yes, like, yep, submit my name. And I never got like that second phone call and until him. And they called us and they said he's in the NICU. He's on methamphetamine withdrawal treatment. He has to go 48 hours without a dose of morphine. His last dose was yesterday, and so he can leave tomorrow. So they gave us clearance to come down to the hospital and meet his nurses and see him and, you know, do a little bit of bonding time with him before we left the hospital. I wasn't able to like stay at the hospital with him, but I could come for as long as I wanted to and hold him and then leave and come back. And so we immediately went down to the hospital as soon as we could. And the nurse that was taking over for the night she said, he's not leaving till Thursday. And I was like, no, they told me tomorrow. Like, they said tomorrow is 48 hours. And she goes, the nurse this morning decided to give him a dose because she didn't have time for him. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And she said, she's not a NICU nurse. She was just up here helping, and she didn't know like his discharge plan. And he was in her head inconsolable, and she saw that he was a withdrawal baby. And so she gave him a dose of morphine to calm him down. And now he can't leave. And I was like, oh my gosh, like heartbroken, right? And She wasn't my favorite nurse either. She like walked in the room and was like, I just got him to go to sleep. So if you could just leave him in there, that would be great. Like you can sit in the room, but please don't wake him up. And I was like, you're telling a foster mom who's been waiting for this baby to sit in a room with her sleeping baby and not touch him.
Stare at him.
I was like, okay. So I sat there for like 10 minutes and then I was like, I don't care. And I picked him up and I just immediately with him, I knew like, this is my baby. And Jimmy was like, he's ugly.
Oh,
No, he's not. He's precious.
he's so cute. I mean, I didn't see him when he was a baby, like a little
But
baby.
he's so cute, right?
He's so cute.
Well, he had like they call it Himalayan head, where he like his head was stretched a little from delivery and bruised because they had to like suction him out. Like 40 days later, he still had a little bit of bruising on his head.
Oh, wow.
And so he just looked sad. So we held him for a little while and we took some pictures and like sent it to our families and here's our new baby. I talked to the nurse a little bit about like he likes his binky, he likes the swing, this is what he's eating. He had a rash, which is normal for like detoxing babies. And she came in right before we left and she said, I just got off the phone with the doctor and he is so mad about what happened today and has canceled the order. Like there is no longer a standing order. He wants you to be assured that this baby will be leaving Thursday morning. And I was like, okay. And he was like, that never should have happened. Like this doctor really wants this baby gone. Like a hospital is not a place for a baby to be raised. It's not a place for a baby to be long term, especially in a dark room by themselves. Like he said, this baby is a month old. He knows now that he's alone. He knows that there's not someone there picking him up when he cries, and he has to literally scream his head off for someone to hold him. So he knows that, and he doesn't want to be alone. And so that's why he was inconsolable, because every time she would put him down, he would get upset. So he was like, this baby needs to go home. Yeah, he said this baby needs to go home. Yeah. He needs a place to live where someone's going to hold him. And when I told them that I had 5 other children at home, they were like, oh my gosh, we could not ask for a better place. Like he needs little people who are just going to hold him. And I was like, I have 4 daughters. So we brought him home on Thursday. And it didn't have a name. I think it was another thing that was like, oh, he's my baby. Like no one even wanted to name him. He's mine. Like I will.
Went a whole month without a name.
Yeah. And one of the nurses was like, well, she said that she was going to name him Adriano, but she never filled out paperwork for that. So none of us called him that. So she was like, you can call him whatever you want. I'm like, deal. So I knew in that moment, though, I didn't want to call him what we would call it, like what we would legally name him if he was adopted, because I didn't want to like jinx it and be like, now I can't use that name anymore because that was him. So I came home and Brody was sitting in the living room with Jimmy watching Moana.
Oh,
and I said, Brody, what should we call our new baby? And he was like, well, baby Maui. And I kind of laughed like, okay, buddy, you can call him that. And it was just like a joke for a while. And then it stuck. And that's what we called him for 2 years of his life. And he didn't know any other name. Like that was his name. He was Maui. And he looks a little Polynesian. And so it just kind of fit. But no one questioned that was his name. September of that year, they severed his mom's rights and put out they call it a publication, where they literally post it in the newspaper that they have this child with an unidentified father, and if you know this woman, to call. And you can be tested.
Okay.
And they said it's really old fashioned, and 9 times out of 10 it doesn't change anything, but we have to do our due diligence to try and find the father. And she said that she knew who it was, but then she said she didn't know who it was. And so we moved forward with an unknown father, and they just have to like sever John Doe's rights. And so that happened. And then he was adopted exactly 1 year after Annie was, in March of 2018. And at that point I had a 4-year-old with cerebral palsy in diapers. She was just over 2, barely 2 years old, still in diapers, and Bentley, who was a year old, in diapers. And I was like, I'm done. Like, this is it. I can't do this anymore. I'm out. This is my family. Yay.
Right.
And so we closed our license and we went to Disneyland. Then I pretended I was a normal mom for 2 years. And it was the worst 2 years of my life. Like, I pretended to be happy, but the year that Bentley was born, I lost both of my grandmothers, my mom's mom and my dad's mom, within like 8 months of each other. And having Bentley through that year was like pretty much the only thing that kept me like above water with all of that. And because of the busyness of being a foster mom, like all the appointments and the meetings and all of this stuff going on. And when I closed my license, that all went away. And it was just like, it was not that my life wasn't insane because I had 6 kids, but the check-ins and just like that, the mental check-in with a case manager or a lawyer or just whoever was coming to my house to give me that extra adult interaction stimulation was gone. And so I found
that's
myself,
all you really knew motherhood to be.
Right. And so I pretended for a while that everything was fine and I was good, but I could feel myself like sinking into a place I didn't like. And we were under construction in our house, adding on an addition because we were in a 3-bedroom house with 6 kids now. And we had our 4 girls in one room and the 2 boys in another. And my oldest was turning 13 and my youngest girl was 3. And I was like, no, this isn't working. Like they need to be split up. So we started the addition and that was stressful and that was a lot. And I said, we have to finish this addition because I need to foster again. And Jimmy was like,
he's like, what?
I'm sorry, what? And I was like, it's the community. It's not, I don't care if I never adopt another child. Like, I'm fine with that. If I do, great. I believe that my Heavenly Father knows me and he knows what I need when my family is complete, better than I do. But I need that support system. I need to feel like I have the support of people who understand what I'm going through, not my sister who also has a 14-year-old but has no idea what I'm going through because her daughter does not yell down the hall, "You're not my mom." And it's hard. Like, it's this last year, like with quarantine and everything, has been the worst with parenting a teenager who like knows you're not her mom. But I was getting through it, or I thought I was pretending to. And then we opened our license again this year in April. And I just said, I just want to foster one baby at a time, just babies, because I don't need to like mess up my quote unquote birth order. I don't need to like try and shove somebody in the middle of the dynamic. I don't need to do that. It's just, let me foster babies. Let me get my like emotional support babies to just like,
no kidding. And then you don't want to bring in another older kid that's like, you're not my mom.
Exactly. Or to fight with my current one saying like, I don't need that. But there's just this like hole still. Like, I'm a mom. I have 6 kids. I love it. I love all my kids dearly. I would die for them. But there's still that like hole because there's just something missing still, like in my heart as someone who dreamed of having babies my whole life. Like, I was raised to be that. Like, you grow up, you get married, you have babies, you're a happy mom. Like, and that still has never happened for me. And so there's just that piece that's just like missing. I still like kind of cringe when someone announces they're pregnant. I still cringe when my sister-in-law shows up to my house with her 8-month pregnant twin belly. Like, there's still those things in life that I'm just like, that's not fair. Like, that's not fair. That I will never experience that. I don't go to baby showers because I don't want to be a part of that conversation. I don't have anything to put in. Like, it's just a weird place to be. And people don't always take you seriously as a parent when you're an adoptive parent, because when you have your own kids, they say to me, like, when you have real kids, and I'm like, my kids are real and
They're
they are
so
mine.
real.
And what I'm going through is harder than what you will ever face with your
for sure.
little. Anyway, so
No,
there's just
so
that,
I'm
that
kind of
thing.
happy you said that, because you never know what to ask somebody, because you don't want to upset anybody or anything. But I mean, I do wonder, like, if that's still, I've always wondered if that still sat with you, like that you did not get to be pregnant and birth a baby.
Always.
Yeah. And it
Always.
probably always will.
And I think it always will. Yeah. A friend of mine is currently going through all of this as well. She's been fostering now for a year and got into it for the same reason we did. Her and her husband found out they couldn't have children, and raised the same way as me. Like, you grow up, you get married, you have kids. Like, that's just what it is. And so they've been fostering newborns for a year and have not been able to adopt one yet. And all three of her sister-in-laws either had a baby this year or are having a baby this year. And she hates them. And I have to say to her, like, it's totally normal to feel what you're feeling right now. And I wish I could tell you that it just goes away, but it doesn't. Like, it just, there's always that twinge. I don't think I've lost hope in like a miracle. If I wind up pregnant at 40, do you know how ecstatic I'll be? Like, I will take it. If I'm told at 43, like my sister-in-law, that I'm pregnant with twins, I'll be like, thank you, Jesus. Like, I will take it. And I will be so happy, because there still is just like that pull of hope. Like, maybe one day, and I, within my religious self, I know that one day, whether it's in this life or the next life, I will mother, like, birth a child. I will have that experience.
What does that mean in the next life?
Within my religion, we believe that when Christ comes again, there will be 1,000 years of lineal joy, perfection, and that we will continue to exist as we do now in a perfect world where there is no pain, there is no suffering, there is no crime, there is no anything. And any blessing that we thought we should have experienced and didn't, any trial we faced on earth. So the fact that I was not able to have a child in my mortal life, that will be given to me then.
Yeah.
So, and anyone who we knew in this existence that we know now, we will still know. Like, so these babies that I knew and helped and loved, even for a day, I will know them and they will know me, and it will be perfect. And so I hold on to that.
Even if they're not in the same faith?
Yeah.
Like, I'll be there.
Yeah. Do you accept Jesus Christ?
I do.
There you go.
Nice. Okay. I like that.
Yeah. I that's what I believe. And that's what I hold on to. That just because it didn't happen to me, that was a trial that I faced in my earthly life. And I believe that I accepted that before I came to earth. That when I was in heaven, before speaking to God, he told me that these would be my trials. And I said, fine, I will do it, because I want that experience.
Yeah.
And now, like, as a human with a human brain, I'm like, why did I say that? Why did I say yes to all of this? It's hard.
It is hard, but without that, you wouldn't have the 6 kids that you have.
Exactly. And I've had that talk, like, with my oldest girls. Like, we came into each other's lives exactly when we were supposed to.
Right.
Like, it sucks that you had to go through what you went through. It sucks that I had to go through what I went through, but we both had to be mentally ready to accept each other as we were and be ready to fight through this together. But I also believe that I knew them pre-earth, and that I said to them, I will be there for you. And did I know the capacity in which I would be there for them? I don't know that I did. But I knew that I would know them, and I knew that I would love them, and that maybe I would be a maternal figure to them, but maybe I didn't know that.
Yeah.
but it happened exactly how it was supposed to. And the question comes up a lot with them too, like, do you think my mom is a bad person? And I don't. Like, I don't have any hate for her at all. Like, none. Does it make me sad to see the life that she's living? Yeah, it does, because I see what she lost.
Right.
And I pray for her, and I hope that she can turn her life around and be able to be a part of their lives when they're adults and choose that.
Yeah.
But it comes up, and I don't hate any of my children's biological parents.
Well, I'll do it for you because I don't think, like, anytime. I'm sorry. The thing that sticks out to me the most is when you said it's normal. The nurse told you it's normal for a baby who's addicted. I'm like, there should never be a baby addicted to drugs. And I know that wasn't the context in which she used it, but just hearing normal and addicted baby, I'm like, I'll hate her for you. Totally. I hate her. I think that's just like one of the.
It is weird to me, the things that I look at and I'm like, oh
yeah. Like, it's just
no.
one of the ugliest things in life to me. But it blows my mind when you say things to me about having my 3 kids next to your 6 kids, and you're like, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? 6 kids and a foster kid. Like, this is wild. But no, it's really been really beautiful to watch your family grow. Now I'm gonna get emotional and to see you as a mom, and the fact that anybody would ever act like that's not real, I think is disgusting, because I see you with your kids and you are better than half the birthing moms I've seen. So you're just doing such an awesome job.
Thank you.
I did not expect to cry, but I hadn't heard some of that, and it's really cool.
Yeah,
and honestly, like, if I were in a different place in my life, because I can't have any more kids. I mean, I can, but my doctor says I shouldn't because he thinks I'll die. So, and I'm just not in a place to have kids. But like, seeing you, I'm like, I want to be a foster mom one day. Like, I do.
And if that's all I can do, like, if that's all my story does, I'm happy with that. Like, I think everyone should foster. I think the world needs more foster parents.
Yes.
But I know it's not for everyone. I know it's not. Like, I've seen people get into it and try, and they're just like, I don't understand how you do this. And I'm like, just do. I don't think about it. I just do it. Like, because people ask me that all the time, how do you do it? How do you make it work? And I honestly couldn't have 6 kids if my oldest weren't who they are. Like, they stepped in, and they had already been the mom for so long that I couldn't do it if I didn't have them. I would still be working. I would still, like, it happened in such a way that it's just been, has it been insane? 100%. Has it been hard? So hard. But they all just accept it, and they help, and they're happy to help because they know they don't have to do it alone anymore. Like, they're just as grateful for me as I am for them.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it without them. And I don't know. I just try my best, and I just do. Like, our friend just got a new placement last week, and little girl has 2 brothers that it took 4 days for them to find a foster home for them to go to. And my initial thought was, why aren't you taking them? Like, just take them. And she was like, I don't have a big enough house. And I was like, get a bunk bed. Like, take them.
Make it bigger.
To me, the thought of, oh, that's going to be hard for me doesn't come to my head. Like, it's not as hard for me as it would be for them. Like, we're here to help them, not to help ourselves. Even though I think that when I came into fostering 7 years ago now, it was selfish. It was for a selfish reason. I was doing it because I wanted to be a mom, and I didn't want to pay thousands of dollars to become a mom. Like, and I thought this is faster and this is easier, and it wasn't. I was wrong in both regards, but it was selfish. My intentions were self-serving. did it continue to be self-serving? No, you can't be. If you are a selfish person, you cannot foster, because it's not about you anymore. It's about them.
Yeah.
And your life becomes their life. And if you make a bad choice, they're gone. Like, foster parents we're under a microscope all the time. Like, DCS is at my house every single month. And if they walk into my house and something is wrong, like, I could lose all my kids. Now that I'm like a licensed foster home again, if something were to happen with my foster placement, they could take all my kids. Like, it could be over. It could be done. And so it's just like, I don't have anything to hide, and I'm not doing anything that would cause that. But if something were to happen, there's no questions asked. Like, you are held to such a higher standard than that of just like the minimum parenting laws in Arizona. It's crazy. So that was, I think, a little bit of Jimmy's concern with reopening this time, just knowing what we've been going through with our teenagers. Like, she screams at us and she is mean sometimes. And what if DCS were to come over on that day where she's just like hating us and she screams at them about what horrible people we are? And then an investigation opens. He's like, we didn't have a single investigation in the 5 years that we had our license open. And that was insane. Like, that's not heard of. They don't teach you if you investigation, they teach you when you get an investigation, this is the process. And it's not because every single foster parent does something wrong. It's because kids talk to their parents when they go to visits. And even like, they told us a story one time of 2 little girls. It was like a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old that went to a visit with their mom and dad. And they told their mom that their foster dad pulled their ear. And their mom was like, excuse me? And like told DCS that they were being abused. And so they went into this foster home. And when they process of an investigation, they don't tell you why they're there. They don't tell you what the problem is. They just come in and they ask you questions that kind of pertain to maybe the possibility of something happening that was wrong. But it's like, what does bedtime look like? What does dinner time look like? What does this look like? If they do something wrong, what does discipline look like? Like, all these things. And nothing was coming up of like touching the ear or pulling an ear or anything. And so she was like, okay, I mean, I don't see anything wrong here, but I just have to know, like, do you pull on their ear? Like, do you ever touch their ear? And he was like, the foster dad was like, well, no. He's like, I mean, I guess like at bedtime, like, because the girl was 5, he said, I didn't feel like it was my place to like hug and kiss her every night because I'm not her dad. And so he would tug her ear and say, I love you, just like a ding ding, you know? And she, I love you, and go to bed. And she was like, are you kidding? Like, that little thing, the girl was telling her mom because she thought it was sweet. She thought it was nice. She didn't think, and her mom took it as like, he's hurting you. And so they just like wiped the investigation and it was fine. But she was like, so it's not when, or it's not if, it's when. It's when something gets twisted. It's when something gets said. It's when a teacher thinks that something is wrong. It's when you get an investigation. And we didn't get one for 5 years. And Jimmy was like, why do we want to test that? Why do we want to tempt fate? Let's not. And I was like, yeah, but I'm like, if it's newborns don't talk. So nothing could get like twisted.
And also, mama wants, mama gets. We learned that 6 times already.
Mama wants, mama gets. That's right. 7 times, because now we have 7.
That's true.
And you've met her. She's adorable. And but we've had her for 6 months. And the whole time I've just felt like she's not mine. It's different than like babysitting. Like, I babysat your kids and they're your kids. I babysit them, they leave. They're here for the hours and then they leave. It doesn't feel like that either. Like, she's part of our family, but I know she's not mine. Like, I don't feel that like motherly bond with her. I love her. She is attached to us like crazy, and it's gonna be hard. when she leaves. And we know she's leaving very soon, probably. And the longer it takes, the harder it is to think about, because I know it's going to be hard on her. She's 13 months old. She knows us. She knows our kids. Like, we speak English. Her grandma does not. And so it's just like this whole like cultural difference that she's going to walk into. And that's really hard. Like, hard for me to think about how she's going to struggle like with that whole difference.
Yeah, how scary.
But there's also nothing I can do. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. I just have to support it and be here and have open communication with grandma and just tell her that I'm here and I'm here to help and I would love pictures and we love her. But it's different. Like, I feel different with her than I do with my kids.
Yeah.
They're my kids. She's not. So
what does grandma speak?
She speaks Spanish.
You guys
so
start
I've
speaking
emailed
Spanish to her.
I know, right? I don't know Spanish, but I've emailed a couple times like with the grandma and just used like Google's translator to just kind of communicate back and forth and send her some pictures and just tell her like, I'm in support of this. She is your granddaughter. Like, if you can take care of her, then you should be given the opportunity to do so. But Jimmy thinks otherwise, and my kids are all in denial that she's leaving. But and the thought of her leaving, it makes me more sad for my kids and for her than it does for me. Like, I know I'll be okay. Yeah. I know that I'll quickly have another baby to take care of and to fill her place in my crib. But my kids will be sad and that she will be missed. And like, we threw her a big birthday party, like for her first birthday, to just make it happy. Like, that's just everything surrounding her just needs to be happy, because we don't want to be sad. We don't want it to be like, oh, we're having this party because she's leaving. Like, no, it's her birthday. We're treating it like any other birthday. And then when she's gone, then we'll just, Brody's already asked me, like, how come we don't have a new baby? Because I kept saying after her birthday, she's going to leave after her birthday. And it's just taking a little longer than I was told it would take. And so I'm like, but I want my kids to be prepared. I don't want them to be like, wait, where is she? And she left. I want them to know that she's leaving. It's helped though with our friend that's had 5 newborns over the last year to see her like babies come and go. I think that that's helped my kids to just like say goodbye. Okay, now say hello. Say goodbye. Now say hello. So it's just, I mean, it's who we are, and it's teaching my kids just to have empathy for people and to just not take for granted what they now have, to be grateful that they're not in that situation. Like, when we told our oldest that our friend's little girl's brothers were still at the DCS office, my oldest started crying, and she was like, all I want to do is hug him. Like, I want to call him and I want to hug him and I want to tell him it's okay. Like, that she's okay. And I get him. Like, I get it. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh. So it's just like, just to see that in them, like that growth of, we get it and we want to help and we understand that what we're doing is helping. And we don't want any child to feel like someone doesn't want them, because no one wants to feel that way.
No.
So I'll probably foster till I'm 80. But.
I love it. Well, I need to go pick up my children's right now.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, I have 15 minutes to go get before you start talking to me. But I feel like we need to do a part 2, because I feel like we just touched the surface here. All right. Yeah. Okay. So I'll text you with a new date.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Thanks for sharing, Bree.
You're welcome.
Bye. All right, guys, that's it for today. As you heard, we're going to do a part 2, because that was just her story. And now I have so many questions to ask her, but I have to go get my kids. And that was very unexpected for me to get so emotional. But she's a good friend of mine. We've known each other since junior high school, I believe. And we graduated 13 years ago. So 20 some odd years, and it has been a very, very cool experience to see her grow as a person and as a mother. And her children are just, they're so cute and they're so well behaved, and they just function as just the cutest little family. So I'm really excited to get her back on to ask a few follow-up questions. And if you have any questions for her, comment below. If you're thinking about fostering, if you're in a similar situation, I'm sure she would be happy to answer those questions. And don't forget to subscribe for the next episode. Bye.